First of all, your comments are disgusting. I've served my country. I've served my country for 34 years.
I find your comments disgusting as well.
I've served my country for 34 years. And yes, I held a 5-year-old boy in my arms in back of that tractor trailer. I knelt down beside him and said a prayer for him because I knew what his last 30 minutes of his life were like. And I had a 5-year-old son at the time. What I've been trying to do my 34 years serving my nation is to save lives. So for you to sit there and insult my integrity and my love for my country and for children, that's why this whole thing needs to be fixed.
Flashback.
Under the Biden-Harris administration, we have had this unprecedented explosion of illegal immigration, a total crisis at the border, and it is worse in California than any state, because actually some other states have tried to push back against what Biden and Harris have done with their open border policies, whereas the policy of California has been to open the border even more in every way that they can. So, for example, California is a sanctuary state. California is the first state in the country to provide free health care to everyone who's here illegally, billions of dollars a year, when, by the way, we're cutting a lot of other services for our own citizens. The legislature recently passed a bill to provide illegal immigrants up to $150,000 in down payment assistance for housing. Now, but now we have this bill related to unemployment benefits. And so it's no wonder that right now, when you look at the different parts of the border, the San Diego sector in California actually has the most illegal border crossings of any border sector in the country. That's the first time that's been true since the 1990s. So these very terrible policies are clearly having a very negative impact.
God help these sanctuary cities, because Pam Bondi's going to be all over them, suing them. President Trump's going to take their federal funding away. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals.
I don't want anybody who crossed over here illegally, unvetted. I don't want them in my communities. The Democratic Party is so far from reality. They go in their gated communities. I don't see any of those people that's advocating to keep these people here. I don't see them in their house and their communities.
Back.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott making a similar move, sending 2 buses with migrants to the vice president's residence in Washington, D.C. Abbott had been busing migrants to the nation's capital, but the buses had been dropping off migrants around D.C.'s Union Station. Volunteers were unprepared to receive the migrants at the VP's residence.
Of Chicago flips red, and yes, that is what it means. Danielle, thanks for joining us here in studio, and you were fired up. You came with a message, not just for Congress, specifically, I think, for Democrats who sort of stand in the way of this administration trying to carry out its immigration policies. What were you so passionate about? What was the message you really wanted lawmakers to hear yesterday?
Yes, for far so long, we have allowed people who their reality is so far from our reality to tell our story. And our voice has been silenced. So I wanted to tell the story of what's really happening in my community, in our community, in most of the sanctuary cities. I wanted to be able to tell that story because and show how the Democratic Party policies are destroying and killing our community. And so long we allow Jasmine Crockett and we allow Al Sharpton to tell these false narratives about what's going on. And they don't even live in our communities. They stay in those gated communities, and they don't have to deal with what we have to deal with on the ground level. And so I was so passionate about that because Brandon Johnson, they always try to silence our voice when we come down there. They do a lot of things.
Why do they try to silence you?
Because the truth is coming out. We are showing about how devastating the migrant or illegal alien crisis have been in our community.
Listen to this. An illegal immigrant working as a soccer coach in Los Angeles, now charged with murdering one of his players and sexually abusing 2 others. 13-year-old Oscar Hernandez disappeared after boarding a train to visit his soccer coach last month. His body was found on the side of the road last week. Former acting ICE director and former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey joins me now. Jonathan, it is an allegation so heinous, murder during the commission of a lewd act with a child, that this suspect could be charged with the death penalty or could face the death penalty. And yet Biden's open border policies welcome this guy with open arms, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's truly shocking when you hear about the details of this. And what's particularly shocking, I was looking at some of Bill Malugion's reporting on this. He was known in 2022. There were allegations of sexually abusing a minor. And again, that wasn't enough to get him removed by the Biden administration. They weren't removing anyone until at least they were convicted of serious crime. So if their administration had been on top of their game, this guy could have at least been removed in 2022, and this crime would have never happened. But it just shows the difference between the Biden administration and the Trump administration on this issue, because the Trump administration is trying to keep the serious criminals out. The Biden administration was welcoming them in on these things like the CBP One app, putting them up in hotels, doing all these things to wine and dine them and make their stay here quite comfortable. And the Trump administration is doing its very best to get the most serious criminals out of the country and preventing new ones from coming in.
Because they come in and they bring, I believe it's 70,000, they say 51,000, but they bring them here unvetted. And let me say this, because sometimes it seems like people will say, you hate the immigrant community. No, I don't. Only thing I say is when you do things, you have to do things in decent and in order. It's a way you have to do things. We as American citizens, if we break the law, guess what? They're going to take us to jail. And if I have my kid with me, guess what's going to happen? That my kid is going to go to DCFS or wherever they go to. They're going to separate me and my kid. I'm going to go to jail, and my kid is going to go to foster home.
Right. We know you love that city. Born and bred. I know you have a ton of family there, so this is very important to you. And we know that you're going to be an outspoken voice on behalf of your city. Thanks for visiting Washington and letting those lawmakers know the reality.
Yes. Yeah. Can I say this?
Sure.
We demand a forensic audit of how our taxpayer dollars was spent on that migrant crisis.
Well, maybe Elon Musk is listening.
Thank you.
We'll give you one. All right, Danielle, thanks for joining.
So back to this story of sanctuary cities and states facing a potential loss of billions in federal aid as Homeland Security and ICE ramp up their efforts to enforce immigration laws that are already on the books.
President Trump stating on Truth Social in part, no more sanctuary cities, working on papers to withhold all federal funding for any city or state that allows these death traps to exist. Eric Shawn has more in our newsroom. Hi, Eric. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Dana and Martha. Well, President Trump is threatening to cut off federal funding to sanctuary cities and states. You know, that could mean untold hundreds of billions of dollars could dry up. Or forgiving illegal immigrants for being in the U.S. could come at a very high cost to jurisdictions that protect them and do not cooperate with federal law enforcement agencies like ICE. The Trump administration could shut down all federal funding to the sanctuary city and states if they do not change their policies. Right now, an estimated 11 states are considered sanctuary states by the Federation for American Immigration Reform, and some cities, counties, and towns also protect undocumented immigrants. Among the cities, Chicago. That's where Mayor Brandon Johnson responded to the president's threat by saying he will, quote, vigorously defend Chicagoans from any unconstitutional or unlawful attempts to strip residents of the funding and services that they are entitled to.
What?
New York City, another sanctuary city, is already suing the Trump administration to stop it from taking back more than $260 million earmarked for migrants. The city has so far spent more than $7 billion.
Oh, hell no!
Back the whole thing.
Hats off to the Homeland Security Secretary and to Tom over at ICE and others that want to collaborate with us on dealing with criminal behavior.
Meanwhile.
So, number one, if you live in a community with a lot of immigrants, know your rights. That's one tangible thing you can do that I want you to do. And I'm going to go through what that means. And that means know your rights if you are a U.S. citizen as well. Okay? Tomhoman, who's the head of who's the head of, who's directing a lot of these ICE operations nationally, etc. He went on TV practically crying. This dude was whining his ass off because ICE went into the city of Chicago, and Chicago had prepared for them. Community organizers, activists, and their mayor and local elected officials who were solid on this issue, they educated the city on their legal rights. Because what ICE tries to do is that they rely on people not knowing their rights in order to enter buildings, in order to search workplaces.
A few moments later.
Up this morning, border czar Tomhoman announced that over the past 24 hours, only 229 illegals crossed over the entire southwest border, down from a high of more than 11,000 a day under Biden and Harris. This afternoon, Homan announced that interior ICE arrests have increased by a whopping 137% under Donald Trump, while arrests of illegals with criminal convictions and illegal alien gang members has more than doubled. The border has become so much more secure under Donald Trump that a migrant shelter in San Diego is now closed. They don't have any people going after receiving no new arrivals since Donald Trump took office. Still, some of the left are doing everything they can do to stop Donald Trump from cleaning up the border mess, including Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which earlier today, Tomhoman said he finds, quote, disturbing. And border czar Tomhoman joins us now with more. Tom, great to see you. You actually said about AOC, which I'm glad you took on, that let's pray she's not educating the next murderer of a young college nursing student on how to evade arrest by ICE, and how many more young women have to be raped, murdered, and burned alive until she wakes up. Ouch. Good for you.
No, it's a fact. You know, she wants to go out and say she's teaching people the constitutional rights. Yeah, you can call it that, but we all know what she's up to. She wants to tell these people how to evade arrest, how to evade ICE. And we still got child predators we're looking for in New York, in her district. People convicted of child sex crimes, people who've been convicted of rape. And she wants to say she's educating them in constitutional rights. We're trying to enforce the laws that Congress enacted. I believe she's a member of Congress. So if they're writing laws they don't want enforced, I can think they got better things to do with their time. But as a member of Congress, you would think she'd want ICE to enforce the laws they enacted, that they appropriate us funding to do, and that's what we're trying to do, and she's making it more difficult and more dangerous.
You know, I'm sure a free speech argument can be made. Okay, she has every right to say anything she wants. When does it cross a line into aiding and abetting lawbreaking? Would it have to have direct involvement by her in helping people to evade ICE?
That's exactly the question I posed to the Deputy Attorney General. I asked him to look into it. I says, I know through my career, someone steps in front of you, in between you and the person you're arresting or repeating. Yeah, that's a violation. But at what point do you cross the line on saying you're educating people versus you're teaching them how to evade ICE arrest? So I've asked that question to the Department of Justice for clear guidance so I can share that with the officers of ICE. So we're looking for that clear direction so we can start taking action on people that want to evade, who want to help educate these people to evade ICE. So hopefully any day now we get that guidance sent out to the field.
2,000 years later.
Etc. So when you know your rights, you are able to tell them no, and they do walk away. If ICE comes to your workplace, if ICE comes to your door, you do not have to open the door.
What?
Mr. Garcia. Thank you, Chairman McClintock. Republicans are here to, surprise, surprise, scapegoat immigrants.
What?
Once again, the Republican playbook on immigration is dishonest and cruel. Republicans have lifted up some tragedies that involved immigrants committing a few crimes. This is the exception, not the rule.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Illegally unvetted, I don't want them in my community. The Democratic Party is so far from reality. They go in their gated communities. I don't see any of those people that's advocating to keep these people here. I don't see them in their house and their communities.
Joining us now is Fox News contributor Karl Rove. You can tell she feels all of that. She's not reading it. Jasmine Crockett, a congresswoman from Texas, had this to say, though.
My Republican colleagues are here using today to continue pushing this false narrative of sanctuary cities harboring criminals. Yet right here in D.C., we have a 34-count felon being harbored in the White House. The hypocrisy coming from your side of the aisle over concerns regarding lawlessness is outrageous.
I feel like...
Girl, bye. Bye.
The Democrats seem to be, especially Jasmine Crockett, are just talking about something totally separate from what the young woman was saying from Chicago.
Absolutely. Why we pay attention to Congresswoman Crockett is beyond me. I say that as a fellow Texan. Let's think about this. In sanctuary cities, I think it was last year, 25,000 detainers were declined. What does that mean? That means ICE, the immigration people, had evidence of somebody who was in a jail in one of these cities who was here illegally, and they put they gave an order to the city saying, we want you to surrender that person to us when they're processed out of your jail. And in 25,000 instances in sanctuary cities, the city said, we are going to decline your detainer. We are not going to turn them over to you.
A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit.
In an additional 1,400 instances, they released somebody who was from their jail, whom they'd been given a detainer for and had not declined it, but ignored it. And so they released those people. So we're talking about 26,400 people who were in city jails, who were released, who are illegally here in this country, who were released by sanctuary city officials to go do perhaps something else that would cause them to be arrested. This is outrageous. This is not being concerned about the public safety and the order and law and order in their cities. And in these sanctuary cities, 26,000 people. Now, where are they from? This is amazing to me. Half of them were in California.
Oh, hell no!
And the other big groups of them are Illinois, Virginia, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. The officials in these states are not concerned, particularly at the local level, which is where this happens, are not concerned with the safety of their people. They could easily say, we're going to participate in a program called 287G, which is the federal government will come in and train your people how, if they get a detaining order, how they're supposed to respond to it, and give them access to federal databases and federal information that would allow them to identify if a criminal they have taken into their possession is here illegally.
You mentioned those other states. I want to put up on the board for everyone to see the numbers there from those other states like Illinois, Virginia, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. New York and Minnesota are also up there. And Carl, in the remaining time we have, can you explain, is it possible, many of these are blue states, or maybe Virginia you would say is a purple state, can this issue affect politics there on a wide enough scale that you would see some sort of changes maybe even this year in New York as there's a gubernatorial race, or in 2026 in the midterms?
Well, it could be an issue, but look, this is not state officials. These are local officials. So the question is, in places like San Francisco or Richmond or New York City, are you going to have people standing up, as the woman in Chicago did, and saying to the city officials, are you really, truly concerned about the safety of our people? Are you concerned about law and order in our community? If so, participate with the federal government and get these people who are in our jails, who are here in this country illegally. When they leave your jail, send them out of our country. Don't release them back into our community, perhaps to do another offense that causes them to be arrested locally and held in the local city jail.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile,
I live in an immigrant neighborhood in Chicago. I know what it's like. But the antidote to dishonesty is truth. And that's what I'm going to talk about. The truth here is that there's significant evidence that welcoming jurisdictions have lower crime rates, lower poverty rates.
What?
It's funny that Mr. Garcia is from Chicago, and he cannot tell you what's happening in our community, because if he came into our community, he would see all the gang graffiti, the Trendy Agua signs, the MS-13. He would see that across the street in the park and where they're putting the shelters at, that all the of needles that's in the park, all night. All we hear is music all night, and the drinking and the defecating on the streets.
Rates, lower reliance on public assistance, and lower unemployment rates. This is from a stakeholder, someone who lives day in, day out. Do I want to live in a dangerous neighborhood? I have a wife, I have children, I have grandchildren. But welcoming jurisdictions have had to do this for good reason. And the truth is that the courts around the country have repeatedly upheld welcoming policies like the ones in Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois. They've also held that forcing states and localities to participate in immigration enforcement violates the Constitution. The truth is that welcoming policies increase trust between community and law enforcement. That's why forcing states and localities to be an instrument of ICE is opposed.
A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit.
In Chicago, where they've released over a 3-year period more than 1,000 criminals back into your community, does that make you feel safer as a citizen?
No.
Did it make your community feel safer?
No.
And did it provide actual safety when you saw MS-13 trained at Aragua roaming the streets there?
No.
So you've demanded a full forensic audit of every dollar tied to migrant shelters, right?
Yes.
And a freeze on the $92 million budget until full reviews are completed?
Yes, sir.
And you want the accountability and community input?
Yes, sir.
And a federal investigation into potential corruption? And potentially, if there is corruption, you want prosecution. Is that right?
Yes.
And most importantly, you want an end to sanctuary policies that you feel disadvantages you guys as citizens of Chicago vis-a-vis illegal aliens who are being released into your community.
We want to end sanctuary cities.
I said what I said.
So tired of my First Amendment being violated. When I come to the Cook County Board meeting, like, you should meet me as a person who is a government elected official. I don't know why you keep playing with me, but as you see, Trump won, and they got majority of the Senate, majority of the House. I've been doing this for a year. I've been coming down here for a year, mobilized for a month, and the world has been reaching out saying that Cook County, we moved Cook County 3 times the national average when it came to this election. Now, that was just a year. We got 2 years to get you out, and to get J.B. Pritzker out. And everybody cannot stand you because you're an embarrassment. You need to retire. And J.B. Pritzker, you already know what Trump said about that. He made sure to let him know, let us know that.
To try to fight crime. Should taxpayers continue to fund sanctuary jurisdictions?
No, not at all. If you are in defiance of federal law and you're not working with federal law enforcement, you shouldn't receive a darn dime.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
Ms. Carter Walters, so you know that Wisconsin is just north of you in Chicago, and I just cited Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin is 100 miles from Madison, Wisconsin, and Kenosha, Wisconsin is only 64 miles north of Chicago. Should people in Wisconsin be concerned about the sanctuary policies that are in Chicago?
Exactly, because they don't just stay in Chicago. They're in Indiana. They're all in the suburbs. So yes, they definitely should be afraid.
Why in the world do civic leaders like Mayor Johnson want to advance policies like this that not only make their own city less safe, but the entire region less safe?
Because we believe that that's how they're funneling money and stealing our tax dollars.
I said what I said.
So that's why we are demanding a forensic audit on how a breakdown of how those funds were allocated, because we have yet received anything of a breakdown to show how our tax dollars were spent. So yes, we believe that's how they're funneling the money, and that's why we're asking for a forensic audit, and we want arrests being made.
People they serve. It takes place in these large cities, the San Franciscos, the Chicagos. When you look at Chicago, and Ms. Walters talking about Chicago, you had Lori Lightweight there. I mean, her approval rating was in the toilet. What, a 22% approval rating? I think she was the first incumbent to lose re-elect. And why is it? Her policies. It was the sanctuary city policies. She was horrible, absolutely horrible. All the anti-police rhetoric. Would you agree with me that that's why Lori Lightweight is no longer the mayor in Chicago?
Yes, and that's why Brandon Johnson has a 6% approval rating.
You should consider running for mayor. I think you're great.
And Ms. Walters, according to the report, the mayor of Chicago spent $638 million in vendor contracts for illegal aliens since 2023.
What?
Ms. Walters, have you seen your taxpayers' dollars being used to benefit illegal aliens instead of the American citizens?
Yes, and actually, after he spent all that money, he then came back and tried to propose a $300 million property tax on the American citizens.
Oh, hell no!
So not only did he take our tax dollars and spend it on people who, and let me just say this, when you come across that border illegally, you have broke the law, therefore making you a criminal. So the 20 million people who cross this border are criminals. So let's just get that. So get that straight right now.
I said what I said.
That's why we trust President Trump, because he is listening to the American citizens. And the Democrat Party, that's why their rating is, 26%? Because they refuse to listen to what the American citizens want.
Ms. Walters, I think really, Ms. Walters, I think really you're right. And I think, so is that how you see Chicago flipping red? Is it the immigration issue? I know that was a big issue in this election, and I agree with you. If people come across the border illegal, they are lawbreakers by definition. And we're not a sanctuary city in Alabama, but I'll tell you this, I had a 14-year-old girl drug into a restroom in Wetumpka, Alabama, and raped by an individual who he had claimed to be a minor when he came to the U.S. He was 31 years old.
What?
And the Biden administration didn't bother to do a background check, turn him loose into our community. And we're not a sanctuary city. I cannot imagine what these sanctuary cities are having to deal with. And these law enforcement officers, when they're trying to just, for public safety purposes, catch people and then not even notify us because they just want to release them back into the community. So tell me, so you think this issue of just the very people who supported the Democratic Party are being left in the cold, in my humble opinion. And so is that how you're seeing Chicago flip red, because of the Democratic policies and what they're doing to those communities they're supposed to be protecting?
Yes. Chicago flips red established because of that. And we are going to make it our business, because we have seen the destruction that the Democratic Party policies have done to our communities in our city. It's funny that Mr. Garcia is from Chicago, and he cannot tell you what's happening in our community, because if he came into our community, he would see all the gang graffiti, the Trendiagua signs, the MS-13. He would see that across the street in the park and where they're putting the shelters at, that all the needles that's in the park, all night. All we hear is music all night, and the drinking and the defecating on the streets, all the the illegal restaurants that are allowed to operate on the residential, on our corners.
Flashback.
California. And I also am representing the angel mothers whose children have been slaughtered and murdered in our communities, especially cities like Salinas, California, and Santa Ana, California. Salinas, an unofficial sanctuary city. Santa Ana just became an official sanctuary city. Article 4 of Section 4 of the United States shall guarantee to every state in the nation a republic form, and shall protect each against evasion and domestic violence. Our beautiful children have been sacrificed at the altar of elected officials and nonprofits is we could see how many nonprofits are making money off of our dead children. Section 8 says that we will not help illegal aliens in any way or form or encourage them to be in our cities, to be in our neighborhoods, to kill our children. We want you to stop this now. Now. I have it on good authority. Our side wins. Even with all that you have, our side wins. Because you have weeping mothers, not only in California, but throughout the United States now. It's not here, it's everywhere now. Stop trying to blare the difference between illegal and legal. There's a big difference. We're Americans. We live the American culture and we have the American spirit. We don't steal, we don't lie, and we don't take other people's things. This man that was up here crying because he was locked up or something, these mothers, these families, their children are gone forever. They're buried throughout California and the United States. Ruben was 13 years old. He was just starting. And a man grabbed him and blew out his brains.
He's the administration prior to Trump.
Yes, and then they can't lock him up. My husband just retired. He's a police officer. They cannot lock them up, and they wasn't reporting the numbers. So if an illegal alien committed a crime, they wasn't reporting it, and then you didn't know.
So that's why they say, oh, there's less crime by a lot of the illegals, because they're not bothering reporting the crimes that illegals are actually committing in those communities.
Yes.
I got you. Hey, real quick question, and you can finish up on this. Democrats really, they attack Republicans often. They call us racist because of our opposition to sanctuary jurisdictions. What is your response to that when they say we're here trying to make communities safe and they're calling us racist? What is your response to that sort of rhetoric?
Well, I say call me a racist. And I don't want anybody who crossed over here illegally, unvetted, I don't want them in my community. So you call me racist because let me say, the Democratic Party is so far from reality. They go in their gated communities. I don't see any of those people that's advocating to keep these people here. I don't see them in their house and their communities. They don't have them around their children or their husbands, but yet and still they're advocating for us to allow this in our communities around our kids and our families.
Thank you, Ms. Walters.
Meanwhile,
Of us should support ICE raids, the hard work of Tomhoman, Customs and Border Protection, and the policies of our duly elected Commander-in-Chief. Ms. Carter Walters, thank you for being here, ma'am. I really appreciate your testimony earlier. In your experience, specifically in Chicago, are communities of colors disproportionately impacted by illegal migrants getting special privileges? And if so, how?
Yes, so they are placed in our communities. They are not placed anywhere else but in our communities. And they are taking over our schools. So whereas you already had overcrowded schooling, so you might have 20-to-1 class. Now you have 40-to-1 class, and then they don't speak English. So now that's taken away from the child already who is already in an overcrowded classroom. And then you have where now we can't even, they took over our parks. So where you'll have grandmoms and things, kids, to keep the kids off the street, they house illegals into the field houses. So they took over our field houses. And then now apartments, whereas because our mayor is paying so much money for illegals to house them, now we have tenants that can't even, the landlords that won't even rent to American citizens because they're renting to illegals because they get paid more for illegals.
Now, let me ask you the next question, ma'am. You've been black for a pretty long time, right?
Yes.
So me too. I mean, I've been black for my entire life, so just want to acknowledge that. So by basically what you're saying, do you view yourself as a different American, or do you just care about the safety of our community? Are you a racist for feeling this way?
No.
Thank you very much.
Former ranking member said at our first immigration hearing that we Republicans were imagining a border crisis. So, Ms. Carter-Walters, are you imagining a border crisis? How would you respond to that?
And that's why President Trump we almost had a red wave in the United States, because we're tired of the lies, the gaslighting from the Democrat Party. All while everything they're saying right now that Trump is a threat. Everything is a threat. No, they're the threat. The Biden-Harris administration allowed 20 million people to cross that border unvetted and illegally. So no, we are not imagining anything. When I go outside my house and I look from side to side and across the street and I see what I see, and see the gangs and see everybody that's not, well, let me say this, people who I know that's not from my community and people who I know that's not from here. When I see that invasion in my community, then I'm not imagining anything. No, I'm looking at that with my own eyes.
Thank you for sharing that.
I hate to say businessmen in my own district who want a lot more immigrants above the legal amount because they don't want to give their employees a raise. And I think that's a motive that's going on out here, because they know if we get a lot of people here illegally, they'll be able to work for less and they won't have to give the average American a raise. And I think that's a motivating factor too. We got to get the view from Chicago. Ms. Carter-Walters, do you have a view as to why these people want to encourage people to break the law?
Well, we believe that because the Democrat Party have a 21% approval rating, they need voters.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
First of all, and it's disgusting to hear that they're advocating for people who broke the law to get here, and to hear them talk about their rights, all while infringing on our rights as true American citizens, is disgusting. And that's why we, the people, trust President Trump, because he listened to us. He's a president of common sense, and who in their right mind will be pushing. Now they see that 80% want mass deportation of everybody. Like you said, when you allow millions of people to come over here illegally, saturating America, then that means that we have to get them out of here and then bring them back and let them come in the correct way. And this, under the Biden and Harris administration, they opened the border, and under President Trump, he's fixing the problem.
Meanwhile,
ICE very often tries to show you some official-looking paper in order to intimidate people and to let them in. Again, remember, they rely on the perception of power. No. You don't just get some paper and let them in.
Mr. Holman, during your time as acting ICE director, deterrence was the order of the day for you. The memo bears that out, exactly what you planned for. The Trump administration claimed they had no choice but to rip children from their parents because they were criminally prosecuting the parents pursuant to zero-tolerance policy. Again, and policies that the administration created and that you, Mr. Holman, accepted, enforced, and championed, as we've seen. Let me remind everyone that the Trump administration tried to ban asylum seeking and started the process of metering, which then prevents people from coming through legal ports of entry. That exacerbated the crisis. People are desperately waiting months just to get in line and be granted the inalienable rights to due process. Mr. Holman, you have said that most immigrants are, quote, not criminals other than the criminal act that they do when they enter the country illegally. That is why I think we ought to revisit decriminalizing desperation, striking sections 1325 and 1326 of Title 8 of the U.S. Code, the statutes that the administration has leveraged to separate thousands of children from their families. Mr. Holman, do you understand that the consequences of separation of many children will be lifelong trauma and carried across generations? Have we not learned from the internment of Japanese Americans? Mr. Holman, I'm a father. Do you have children? How can you possibly allow this to happen under your watch? Do you not care? Is it because these children don't look like children that are around you? I don't get it. Have you ever held a deceased child in your arms?
First of all, your comments are disgusting. I've served my country. I've served my country for 34 years.
I find your comments
this is out of
disgusting
control.
as well.
I've served my country for 34 years. And yes, I held a 5-year-old boy in my arms in back of that tractor trailer. I knelt down beside him and said a prayer for him because I knew what his last 30 minutes of his life were like. And I had a 5-year-old son at the time. What I've been trying to do my 34 years serving my nation is to save lives. So for you to sit there and insult my integrity and my love for my country and for children, that's why this whole thing needs to be fixed. And you're the member of Congress.
We agree on that.
Fix it.
We agree on that, but I disagree. But I also disagree with your characterization of immigrants as prone to criminality.
People for 3 decades on this.
Gentleman's time has expired. It's my time now.
Mr. Chairman.
It's my time.
Well, the gentleman ripped off about 7 different questions designed to go at the character of Mr. Holman, and Mr. Holman should be given a chance to respond. It was ridiculous, the way he just rattled them all off and wouldn't let him respond to them.
Let me say this. I understand that, but first of all, I'm going to have civility in my hearings. All right? I have the floor.
I understand, and I agree with you.
I'm going to have civility. That's why I was banging, so that we could hear each person speak. I have been very courteous and very kind. Now, Mr. Holman, do you have something to say?
No one in this room has seen what I've seen in my 34-year career.
Very well.
No one has experienced what I've experienced. I've saw many dead bodies coming across this border. And you want to talk about the memo? This memo is one option to stop death. Not just about enforcing the law, stop death. If you want to legalize illegal immigration, good luck with that, because it's going to get a hell of a lot worse on that border. If you say, well, okay, from now on, there will be no consequence, no deterrence. It's not illegal to come to this country illegally. More families will come. 31% women would be raped. More children would die. We're a nation of laws. If you don't like it, sir, change it. You're the legislator. I'm the executive branch, and I've served my country honorably for 34 years. And I will not sit here and have anybody say that I don't care about children because you're not the same color as my children.
Thank you very much.
Number 2, you can ask them to leave. If they do not procure a warrant, you can ask them to leave. You can stay silent. If they have detained you, you can say, I would like to remain silent. You invoke your right. You do not have to share personal information. They want to know what your immigration status is. Even if you're a U.S. citizen, if they want to ask you, are you a U.S. citizen? You tell them I don't have to answer that question. You tell them I do not have to answer that question. You do not have to. They ask you where you were born. I don't have to answer that question. They ask for your immigration status. I do not have to answer your question. They do not, unless you are being officially detained, if they have a judicial warrant.
Girl, bye.